Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video. Myself, Jonathan MS Pearce, Ukraine War News Update. First part thereof for the 1st of August 2024. My goodness, summer is advancing on a pace. We go to where we normally start Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply, and you can find them in the description to the video below. I just want to alert you to something Dell has told me this morning. He's a guy that does the OneDrive linked Excel spreadsheet for all the stats in the description below that you can check out on a daily basis. He said that morning, so obviously a new high for drones, 115 on a night of the 31st, 100% shot down, and that did bring up a new moving 30-day high. So 115 drones, not last night, but if you remember the night before, there's a lag. They compile these figures pretty much in the middle of the night, and they often miss whole drone waves that turn up then on the next day's stats, and that's exactly what's happened here. So if we go to his stats and look at, say, drones here, this is the one we want to look at over here. So that is the added drones, that's 115 there, giving you a daily moving average, a 30-day and a 7-day moving average that is incredibly high, and that's sort of a record as well. So that's what he's saying. I don't know if there's anything else. However, with only one cruise missile shot down, this is not a record for a combined aerial attack. So there is a combined drones and missiles. So I think if we have an aerial attack in there, drones, cruise missiles, I'm sure there's an aerial attack. Where is it? There's certainly down here. I think if we go along further to the right here, oh, there's the button. Cruise missiles, warship. Yeah, here we go. Aerial attack. So there's your aerial attack stats that adds up your drones to the cruise missiles. So obviously that's not going to be huge because there were no cruise missiles essentially for that day. Anyway, thanks Dell for alerting us to that. So 9 tanks pretty much on the daily average, 42 armored personnel vehicles, shows that the Ukrainians, I think, are on the receiving end of some consistent Russian attacks here. They're still using an awful lot of armored personnel vehicles on certain days. 33 artillery systems. Interesting, the artillery systems, even though that's almost double the daily average, is lower today than the armored personnel vehicle losses. 1 multiple launch rocket system, 77 vehicles and fuel tanks, very high for that. A statistic for that category, 16 pieces of special equipment lost as well. So a bit of a mixed, well, not that much of a mixed bag of nuts actually. 1,370 is a very high personnel loss, and I think you add that together with tank and armored personnel vehicle losses and 77 vehicle losses, because that will include things like golf buggies and motorcycles and etc. etc. I think you add those stats together and you get a firm sense that the Russians are really attacking as much as they possibly can do, even given the great challenges that they are facing with regard to material and personnel shortages. The Ukrainians have that obviously themselves as well. Now, when we look at the stats, there's about a 3-to-1 Russian to Ukrainian loss stat here today, which is exactly what the Ukrainians would want. In terms of combat asset losses, I guess that's about 20, and that's about probably 10, so maybe a 2-to-1 loss ratio in combat asset losses. Okay, let's go to the Ukrainian losses first. There's nothing that really shouts out apart from that Leopard 1A5 DK being destroyed. That is the first, I think, recognized destroyed Leopard 1A5, if I am correct. And we do have imagery of that, which I'll show you in a second. But nothing else that's particularly unusual. No crazy high value equipment lost there. Then when we go to the Russian losses, the first thing to note is actually the number of destroyed against damaged bits of kit is fairly bad for the Russians there, destroyed and abandoned. We have a helicopter, Mi-8 helicopter, that was evidenced yesterday. I talked about that with regard to it being taken down by a drone. A little bit more detail on that in a second. Some surveillance and comms equipment, usual sort of artillery, tanks, range of those tanks there, BMPs, infantry fighting vehicles, that is, BMP 1s, 2s, and 3s, and then APCs, MRAPs, usual sort of equipment, trucks and civilian vehicles. They're just losing a lot of it. So today is just about mass, really, but throw that helicopter in, and there's your high value loss for the Russians. Now, in terms of what's been going on near the Pokrovsk region, this is Nalsio who adds up these losses in geographical areas, and it gives you an understanding of the combat losses in certain areas and how it's going for the Russians. So when you talk about the Russians making some good territorial gains in the Pokrovsk area, they have lost 1,524 to 298. So that's a 5-to-1 ratio. And then when you look at what's been added across the last 24 hours, the Russians have added 39, the Ukrainians 5. So that is an 8-to-1 ratio. Yes, they are making gains in Pokrovsk, but it does come at a cost, and that cost is being visually documented. So it's not like me trying to give some hopium here. This is actual data. These are verifiable data points. You can go and check Nalsio's open source doc, Google Doc there if you so desire. Good information, and that's pretty good news for the Ukrainians, though they are losing territory. German aid to Ukraine talks about that Leopard 105 footage of the first destroyed Leopard 105 main battle tank surfaced via lost. What is it? This is your lost_war in UA. Is that Lost Armors? No, I think that might be a different handle. Okay, anyway, this was destroyed near Liman in the Donetsk region. So far, 58 Leopard 105s have been delivered to Ukraine by Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands. I think they're due to get quite a lot of more of these. So have they got like another 100 on the way? Which is really good news for Ukraine, as they need to consistently replace that which they're losing. This is the first Leopard 1A5 that they've lost. We talked about this yesterday in a breaking news update, and Mi-8 being taken out, I think just after taken out by a drone. Here, the Ukrainian Review says, yesterday, Ukrainians shot down a Russian helicopter for the first time with the help of a 2-kilogram drone. That is what Forbes is saying. And I was wondering what drone it is. I don't think we've got any concrete evidence of what drone was used, but the idea here is it probably was an FPV drone. There were claims from the Russians that this was significantly behind the front lines, which would indicate that Ukrainians may have increased the range of their FPV drones. It took about 10 months of trying before a Ukrainian drone operator finally hit a Russian helicopter, and probably because it only just taken off and is therefore, not moving particularly fast. When they are moving at speed, it's going to be difficult for a drone to take it out. You have to cut it off rather than kind of chase it. You probably will struggle doing that. And seeing memes like this, but actually there's a seriousness to this meme, which is how are helicopters now going to protect themselves against these strikes? This is going to be necessary for the Russians and the Ukrainians to consider going forward. Now, moving on to strikes, not a crazy amount to report today, but across the different categories here. Air Defense shot down 7 out of 7 Shahed drones last night, so a much quieter night from the 89 that were shot. I'm trying to make sense of this. So Russia attacked the house of Russian opposition politician Ilya Ponomarev near Kiev with an Iranian Shahed drone. The politician was injured, the house was destroyed, targeted terrorist attack, attempted political assassination, which is interesting because the last 2 nights we have seen 100% of the drones taken out. So I don't know quite how this is squared, whether this happened more than 2 days ago, whether this was a drone that just fell on his house and actually it wasn't targeting him and it's taken down by air defense, or whether this is one that's got through that isn't included in the 7 from last night or the 89 from the night before. So something needs to be squared there. Russia is using, according to the Kyiv Independent, new distracting drone types during a recent attack on Ukraine, according to the administration. Russia used a significant number of so-called distracting drones designed to probe air defenses rather than destroy targets in its mass attack on July the 31st, according to Andrei Yusov, Ukraine's military intelligence spokesperson. Now, we've heard this before. There have been some claims that Some of the Shahed drones don't actually have warheads on, that they are being used merely to either map terrain. So that's something they're doing, 3D mapping. There are other claims that they've got no warheads on because they're just being used as kind of a sacrificial lamb to find out where the air defenses are, which is kind of what this is implying, although it sort of also indicates that this is not a Shahed drone, like a distracting drone type. So I don't know the finer details of this claim, but interesting that the Russians are trying something a little bit different there to obviously gain as much information as they possibly can. And in Romania, new drone debris was discovered following Russian attacks last week. The fragments were found near the village of Chatalchioi, close to the Romanian-Ukrainian border. The debris is located outside populated areas, causing no harm to people. However, this is on top of the potentially the 3 drones that supposedly veered across the river in the Ishmael, I think, area on the Danube River. The Danube River is the border between Romania and Ukraine, and there have been these issues of Russian drones crossing the border and then either being shot down or coming down in Romanian territory. This one appears to have come down a little bit closer to an urban settlement than the Romanians might like, and then this has prompted supposedly the Romanians to fire at drones, to shoot down Russian drones near or over Ukrainian territory. Well, actually, part of the claim is that they could be shooting drones down over Ukrainian territory, and this was then denied, but I don't know whether there is something going on with Romanian air defense. It wouldn't surprise me, and I think they'd be well justified in doing so. Right, moving on to other bits and pieces. We have OSINT Technical here saying Western Ukraine. A Ukrainian Air Force MiG-29 UB Fulcrum peeks out from behind the half-closed doors of its hardened aircraft shelter, preparing for a new mission. This is, okay, you might say, so what? This is important because we have an indication that a plane is being stored in a hardened aircraft shelter. And if that is the case, the Ukrainians are thinking seriously about the defense of their aircraft as they are at air bases. And then it makes you also realize that those that have recently been hit, or at least that one the other day, the, what was it? Was it Su-24? That was hit, and it was thought to be a decoy. Almost certainly was a decoy. Just sat outside for some time, caught on various satellite passes. It probably was a decoy, and I assume that they've had their fingers burnt a number of times to the point where they are now storing their aircraft a lot more safely. And this is incredibly important, given the onset of the F-16s, the F-16s that have supposedly already arrived in Ukraine, possibly 6 of them is the news that we're hearing, with more to come. And it is going to be essential that those aircraft are protected as they are on the ground at whatever airbase they are operating from. It's really important that there are these hardened aircraft shelters, and it's good news to see one in an image there. Now, Putin's regime is making good on its promise to turn Russia into a giant North Korea, says Jay in Kiev. What's he talking about? Well, YouTube is getting locked down as we speak. And this is the news that has been expected for some time, has been announced that they are going to throttle YouTube. And here it looks like YouTube is becoming unavailable in Russia. This is what the graph shows, the dynamics of problems over the last 10 days in the graph. If the graph shows a strong break from the previous values, it means a massive failure. So this looks like YouTube is in a bit of trouble, and the Russians are closing it down so that they can control the information that their population receives. Okay, US-Russia prisoner change looks like it might be imminent. So this is news I reported yesterday, incredibly important, but it could well be that it has already happened. So 20 to 30 prisoners are to be swapped, and they are big old prisoners, not physically big, but big names. Ivan Gershkovich, we've got Rico Krieger, was pardoned in in Belarus. You've got Paul Whelan, Mark Fogel, Alsu Kumasheva, don't know them, but potentially Vladimir Kara-Murza, he's a big name there, and a lot of other names to be swapped with some people in America. It appears to be happening. Some have claimed that it already has happened, that Gershkovich, for example, has been released. This is really big news and really great. It'll be very interesting to analyse who is being released on each side and whether this is a good deal and who it's a good deal for. Anyway, that's enough from me today. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. I'll speak to you soon. I'm out for a wee while, so my output might be a little bit inconsistent today. But I'll try and get you as much as I can, as soon as I can, and I'll be working on my mapping update next.